All right, so we are recording now. This is going to be a demonstration on how to mount your wax ring on the flask base. So the things on the table that you may not be familiar with, a brass wire brush. This is the flask. This is the flask base. Both of these objects live underneath the counter over there in some bins. This is a scale, and there's this scale. There are a couple of digital scales that live in the cabinet. These are the wax sprues that are size 2, but basically this size, which is going to be good enough for most of you unless you're working a lot larger or a lot thinner with your wax. I've got my journal. I've got the debubbler. That also lives on this back counter. I've got my wax welder. This red stuff, it lives in that little blue bin right behind Allie, but normally that's around the corner in the alcove. This is gating wax, and this will become very familiar to you when we move on to the bronze project, but I'll show you why we're going to use it in this instance. And then I have my soldering iron. So I think I've identified everything. So I'm going to plug in the soldering iron and let that heat up. And I'll show you why I'll be using it in just a moment. So as I've said a number of times, like some of you have come and shown me your ring in wax, and I'm like, nope, keep working it. Nope, keep working it. Like, really make those surfaces as perfect as possible. Like, I would be happy enough to wear the wax version, you know, in terms of the surface quality, because no matter how tedious it is to perfect the wax, it's even more tedious to try to perfect the metal. So once it is perfected to your satisfaction and to mine, you'll want to weigh the wax. And if you remember from the slide lecture, the way that we mount the ring on the flask base is we've got at least 3 bits of sprue wax to support the ring. If your ring is more complicated, some of you have a lot of like negative spaces. Some of you, like Preston's ring, is quite large, right? So if you're in that category of something different than my, very basic ring, I may tell you to use more sprues to mount your wax. But most of the time, 3 will do. And so what you want to weigh in addition to your ring or whatever you're making are the sprues as well, okay? So if you're using the old-timey scale, you want to make sure that before you put everything down on the scale, that it's truly at 0.
Zeroed out.
It needs to be zeroed out. And if it's not zeroed out, this is how you adjust it so that the needle is right on 0. Okay?
Where's
So
the
it's
dial?
right, huh?
Where's the dial to adjust it?
It's on the back
Oh, I
side
see.
here.
Okay.
And you can't see the numbers because they're facing me.
I can't.
But it's at 0. And when I throw all of my wax on there, it is like 1.5 grams of wax, okay?
So you already know like your sprue sizes in advance, like you've already kind of measured them and put them in there?
Yes, because I've done it a few times, but the first time that you do it, it'll take you a little bit longer. And then this is within like such a thin margin that if I have to add a little bit more or subtract a little bit more, it'll still be okay. But I think knowing the number of sprues will be important for you all. Okay, so I've written that down, 1.5 grams in my journal. And then there's a little bit more math to do from there, but I'll get started on the flask base. So you see there's this outer collar and then this little mound in the center, and then there's a hole in the center of that. If there is no wax in that hole in the nipple of the flask base, you need to add wax in here. So that's why I have my soldering iron. It's nice and hot now. And I'm just gonna take some of the gating wax and melt it into the hole and fill the hole. And some of you may get a flask base and the hole's already filled, and that's great. It's one less step that you need to do. Okay, and we could use jeweler's wax to fill that. It's just the gating wax is more prevalent and cheap. You know, it's not precious in any way. When you're choosing a flask, make sure that you find the base that will fit on it, number one. It should be a snug fit, okay? You kind of have to wrestle the rubber around the base of the flask. That's okay. But don't just grab a flask base and assume that you're gonna find the matching flask, because we've got a bunch of different sizes in there, and of course somewhere along the way we've lost a part or two. And so when you grab a base, make sure that you're also finding a mated flask with it. And then additionally, if you have a really large ring or other object, make sure you grab the appropriate sized flask. How do we know what's appropriate? You want to picture your piece inside of the flask with about an inch of room around the piece. So if your piece is much larger and it's occupying, like yours would still fit in here, Preston, but like I'm thinking maybe Allie, your piece, which I don't know how it's changed since I last saw you, but it was kind of like the size of a Triscuit cracker, right? So like that might get a little too close to the walls of the flask, okay? So if you're unsure, please ask me what size would be best for your piece. The reason why we need the room around your wax is that the investment material that we use to mold around your wax is fragile. And if your wax is too close to the edge, it could cause collapse. And that, of course, you don't want to have happen because you've spent so much time making your wax object. You don't want to risk anything collapsing because then it's a failed endeavor on a lot of levels. Okay, so the math that I need to do, and this is in the slide lecture, which is in Canvas if you need to revisit it, but you're going to weigh your wax weight, the ring plus the screws, so that's 1.5 grams. So if someone's got their phone handy, because mine is recording, if you can multiply 1.5 times 10.4,
15.6.
15.6, thank you very much. And then we need to add another 10 grams for the pouring cup, okay? Okay, so then we have a total of 25.6 grams needed of silver. Okay, so if you bought your troy ounces already, you can, see if you have enough, like dump out all the grain carefully, because those things love to scatter, and weigh out your grain just to make sure that you've got enough silver to complete the task.
Could you repeat that calculation again? Sorry.
So it is the wax weight times 10.4 plus another 10 grams.
That 10.4 is the gravity difference, the
Yes.
specific gravity?
That's the specific gravity for silver.
And the last one was 10 is for what?
10 additional for the pouring cup. Yes.
What if in situations like with me where I have 2 rings?
Same thing. We can probably mount them in the same flask. It might just, I think each of you should consult with me on, like, I'll draw it out for you. How are you going to mount your items inside the flask? But we can definitely do 2 in 1.
If you don't have enough silver, can you use old silver rings? Or...
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure that it's not over 50% of your total weight needed, and then we should clean your ring or whatever silver, which I'll talk about cleaning silver and other metals
Could you
later.
again repeat the last part? Sorry, Mitra. The last part, could you again repeat?
Like if you have old silver, that part,
Yeah.
you don't want more than 50% old silver. You need at least 50% new casting grain.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. Anything
So-
else?
Let's say I have a 2-gram ring with a wax. It would be 2 times 10.4 plus 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions so far? Okay. So, this is the sprue wax that I'm going to use for my ring. And I eyeball a lot of this stuff, which I don't expect you all to be able to do initially. But what I do is pinch off about, I don't know, it's like an inch and a half or so, and I bend it in half to make a little V. And that's easier for me to get this process started. And so what I'm going to do is weld the V into my puddle of wax. And when you're welding wax, the trick is to weld it and let it cool. Weld it, let it cool. So I'm just kind of working my way around the V of my sprues. And notice that I've put them on an angle. I don't know if everything is perfectly set up just yet. I can make adjustments after. But in order for the weld to hold, you need to let the wax cool. So if you remember when I told you what your shopping list was, the can of air, if you're someone who's impatient, the canned air cools the wax very quickly. So you can weld it and then just hit it with the canned air if you don't want to wait for that to happen. If you don't allow the wax to fully cool and you keep welding, things just kind of get soft and mushy and fall apart. The other temptation sometimes is to push the wax into the wax. And that you also don't want to do, because on a very microscopic level, you are breaking the bond of the wax, right? Letting it cool naturally really is the best way to ensure a strong weld, okay? So as I am welding, I'm going all the way around. And what you can do sometimes is even, like if you've taken ceramics and you're familiar with the idea of like taking a thin coil to wrap around areas that you're trying to join, you can take little extra bits of wax to melt around the junction of the sprue wax and the gating wax. Those of you who have been working with hot wax, you notice that when you melt it a little bit, it recedes a tiny bit. And so that's what I'm altering here. I'm just bulking up where the sprues meet the base in order, I'll draw it out for you. So if these are my two sprues, and this is the nipple on the base, sometimes when I am welding, I might get like a little bit of an undercut here, right? Where the act of welding kind of takes away some of the thickness of the sprue. So I'm just adding a little bit more wax in here to fill in this so that I have a junction that flares out rather than is undercut where it meets the other piece of wax. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so back to this. Now that I've got two sprues mounted, I can start to figure out where things are going to meet, where they're going to attach, and then figure out my third leg.
Mitra, how far away should we be from the tip of the base?
Excellent question. You want to be about an inch from the top of the nipple mound to the lowest point of your ring.
And can we mount the ring from the inside?
You don't want to mount the ring from the inside for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
If you can do it from the edge or the exterior, that is the best practice, because if you can imagine after the fact, when you cast it in metal and then you're cutting everything away, it's going to be really hard to access the inside of the ring shaft. So where you mount your sprues, there's some logic to it. So like if you look at my ring, there's kind of, I'm doing kind of like a signet style where there's a flat top. So there's a lot of bulk up here. So I'm going to mount one here, and one down here. Okay, so kind of the far reaches of the object and doubling, like putting two where it's more bulky.
It seems like it would be easier to put the screws on the ring to come to a point and then put it on?
Sure,
Does that
there,
matter which way
no,
you do
it does not matter. If you want to do it that way, that's totally fine. So I just kind of drew out where my ring shape and where the sprues would make contact with the ring. So certainly what Andriana is saying, like, why not just lay this down, weld the sprues onto that, and then mount everything on here, totally fine. This is just my preferred way of doing it, but doesn't mean it's the only way or the right way. So if I mount it like this, I'm on an angle, right, which is what I want. And I just need to scoot these around a tiny bit, just to make sure that I'm hitting all the points that I need. But just know that if you need to really bend the sprues drastically, double check your weld at the base, because it may have come loose. Okay, that's a little too flat right now. So I've got all the sprues making contact where I want them, but that's a little flat line. Remember, I want to pitch the ring.
Do you want the bulk of the ring to be the lowest point? Or does that not
I don't know
necessarily
that it
matter?
really matters so much. It just happens to be, I've done it both ways, where like the bulky part is at the top and at the bottom, and I haven't really noticed a difference in the way that it cast. Okay, so I'm just pinching maybe like a millimeter or two down from the top so that I get more of that angle happening. And that's better.
Does it matter that how steep the angle is?
You want it to be, I don't know, at least 20 degrees. Sometimes it's steeper. If you have something that's quite large, like maybe it's a long piece, like a necklace pendant or something, we can pitch it even more severely, just to be able to fit in the flask with that inch margin all the way around.
I see. So that bigger angle is so it fits, not for the flow.
Exactly. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. So this is the tricky part, is just getting it welded initially, just so that I can pick it up and move it around.
So you're not hitting the ring, you're hitting the sprue with the.
I'm doing both. It's I kind of equate it to sewing. Like anytime I'm teaching someone how to weld, I think about you've got two materials and you want to join them. So I'm moving, whether it's a welding nozzle or this little wax welder, I'm kind of moving it between the two, convincing the two materials to join together.
So which one is it? To the edge, the spruce is mounted to the edge of the ring, or like on?
Yeah, right now, the one that I'm concentrating on, it's basically right on the side of the band. So again, going back to my sketch, I'm mounting it right here. So not on the inside of the band, because again, that's harder to remove silver once you get it cast. So it can go on the edge or it can go on the outside. Yeah.
I guess if when you were talking about how the welding can make that little convex area
Mhm.
or concave area, I guess you need to make sure that you're not doing that to your ring,
Definitely.
or drip a little bit more inside.
Drip a
there.
little bit more, exactly. So, is this actually on here? Yes, it is. So in order to do that, I'm going to, these little tiny pieces that I just pinched off, I'm gonna pick one of them up and use it to melt into place.
So you're doing additive right now.
I'm adding back in. And you want to be able, careful. I want to be able to turn this every which way. And I just blew it. Dang it.
Whatever.
No, I just melted too far and it came apart. So budget time for this process. It takes a while. To get it right. And practice, so I don't think it's a bad idea even to take some scrap wax and just practice this. Dang it. See what I mean? All right.
I guess that we're doing it the other way first might be easier.
Maybe, yeah,
Except
it's,
then you could break your things off when you're trying to bend them in to attach them to the
yeah,
base.
it's just a careful process, period, no matter what. And if I can get a second one on, then I'll feel more confident in turning this thing upside down.
Does the temperature of our own hands help bend sprues by any chance?
I mean, the temperature of your hands will definitely affect the wax if you handle it for a long time. I mean, the wax that we're carving is quite hard, and that is less easy to manipulate with your body temperature.
Okay.
But the gating wax, the red wax by my right arm here, that's definitely easier to manipulate in that way. And when we get around to working with the brown wax for the bronze project, that if you break it up into small pieces, that is pretty, it's almost like working with the oil-based clay. Okay. So I'm pretty, I need to go all the way around, but I want you to carefully pass this so that you can look at it up close. And so again, just notice a few things. Notice the split of the three sprues. Notice where they're touching the ring, and the height, right? So the lowest point of the ring is about an inch higher than the nipple, okay? So and everything is still pretty centered in the flask base. So you don't, like in this process, sometimes it's easy to start like leaning over to one side. You wanna make sure that you stay centered so that you're not super close to the walls of the flask. So as that's going around, I want to talk about one last step that you'll need to take before Thursday's demonstration, which I'll show you how to mix the investment and get it into the flask. You want to spray the debubbler onto the ring. If it gets onto other things, of course, now that it's fully mounted, that's totally fine, but your goal is just to spritz this material all the way around, and that prevents the bubbles from accumulating on the surface of the silver. Yes, David?
So I got a question on that.
Yeah.
Is that debulk we put on immediately prior to investing, or can you let it sit for 2 days?
I would only let it sit from a Tuesday to Thursday if you put it like in your cabinet so that it's not getting dusty.
That's fine. But immediately is okay too.
Yep, immediately is okay too. You just, when you spray it on, it looks wet. You just want it to dry before you do the investment. But I've never had an issue with that, because by the time you weigh out the investment and the water and all that, like, the debubbler will definitely dry. Any other questions at this point?
Can we spray the debubbler a few times or just one time?
Yeah, I mean, you end up spraying it a few times just to make sure you hit all of the surfaces. So when it comes back around to me, I'll show you spraying the debubbler.
The name says it is debubbler, which is not making bubble, but what is it and how does it doesn't make bubble?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it has some alcohol in it. Don't get excited. It's not that kind of alcohol. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. It's probably some sort, like when we work with wax to do the bronze casting, we finish it by spraying an acrylic wax on top. It's just to make it more slick and make it free of any debris or something that the bubbles might get caught on. Yeah, Lunar.
Hold on, my train of thought is like vanishing. Right. Is it, okay, it's kind of a two-parter question. Part one being, would it be okay if we like made little, I guess, bumps on where we wanna put the sprues before we get to that step? So that way we at least know where to put it and it can help us weld it.
Sure.
And the second part is if we can go a bit further than that and put the sprues on the ring first before adding it to the mount.
Yeah, you can do it in reverse order. So you mean before you put it on the flask base, get the sprues on there? Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That might actually be easier.
We added the red wax,
Mm-hmm.
gauge wax?
Gating wax, yep.
So when we add at the base of the flask cap or flask base,
Mm-hmm.
how it is different from the blue wax? What I mean to say that we are weighing it because it needs to be replaced by silver. So
Mhm.
my question is, the red wax is not replaced by the silver that we're supposed to cast?
It is, that is basically the pouring cup, the 10 grams. Yeah, so in order to deliver the silver into the sprues and then into your ring, we need a little bit of extra silver to help push it through the mold. And so that's this little mound here is what turns into the pouring cup. Okay, so I'll show you just the last step. So this is the debubbler. So I'm just spraying, just coming at it from a bunch of different angles and making sure that every surface of the ring glistens. You're going to hit the sprues and everything else too, and that's fine, but it's not the point. So like the surface of the ring wax is the primary concern of what you want to get the debubbler on. Yes.
Does that irritate like skin at all? Or
It could, I mean, it's classified as an irritant and not as a hazard, but
for your lungs?
it's very flammable. It can cause eye irritation. It's a little stinky, it smells just like rubbing alcohol. And it says it may cause drowsiness or dizziness, but so use it with caution, but I've never had anyone react to it. Okay, what's that?
You don't drink it?
No. I know it looks like an Aperol spritz, but it's not. Okay,
I have a question, Trish.
Yeah.
It's not about that spray, but it reminded me of the wax spray we use when we're doing a bronze casting.
Yeah.
If we don't have really fine detail on our piece, and we don't wanna, sit here with the baby oil and stuff, could we spray it?
the spray that we use on the wax for bronze is not a substitute for finishing work. Yeah, unfortunately,
That'd be cool. if it was.
I know. It would, but yeah,
It's
No
a different
can do.
spray for bronze than this?
yeah, it's basically just like a commercial floor wax that we use.
right.
Yeah. So, think you can get this far by like, I don't know, I mean, if you're ready to do this today, now you know how. But maybe by Thursday, I think that would be a good goal for everyone to get these things mounted. I saw those wide eyes, Patrick. Yeah, so I guess super focus on finishing the wax for the rest of class, and then hopefully Thursday you'll be able to mount it. Thank you.